This is the universal classroom. The universal classroom is a part of the People's University. The universal classroom is designed for LIU leadership. The universal classroom is based off of the scholarship of LIU. The universal classroom does not claim to hold the absolute truth. This is the universal classroom. This is the universal classroom. This is the universal classroom. You are now tuned in. Today's lesson is concerning the constellations of the Zodiac. There are approximately 88 constellations viewable from the night sky from Earth. Today, we will concentrate on the 12 constellations known as the Zodiac Circle. These are the 12 constellations that have been used to calculate time by many cultures for thousands of years. Our goal, by the end of today's lesson, is to have the 12 constellations, along with some basic background information, memorized. But before we begin with our memorization technique, we need to discuss some basic concepts that go along with our list. What is a constellation? The meaning of animal signs. The meaning of celestial birthdays. The meaning of planetary rulers. What is called the classical elements. I just want to clarify, I'm going to use a term throughout this discussion. Chemical. This term, chemical, refers to anything that has an origin in the land of Chem, which is the ancient name of what is now called Egypt. So if I say our chemical ancestors, or if I say chemical astronomers, or if I say the ancient chemists, I mean the people who used to live in the land of our forefathers that is now called Egypt. Just want to get that out the way. And now, what is a constellation? A constellation, for the purpose of this discussion, is simply a group of stars that appear to be permanently fixed into the night sky. Ancient chemical astronomers drew pictures to identify and trace these groups of stars and other celestial bodies throughout the year for the purpose of keeping time, navigating the earth and seas, as well as aspects of life on earth that we still don't quite understand exist. And so those pictures that ancient chemists drew became known as the constellations. Now we're going to get into the meaning of the actual animal signs. The 12 animals are said to represent 12 basic personality types or characteristic modes of expression on Earth. Ancient chemists believed that the movements of planets and stars control human activity, based upon the principle found in the oldest religious text known to man, called the Emerald Tablet, which states, "That which is below is like that which is above, and that which is above is like that which is below, to do the miracles of only one thing." Some religious theorists suggest that this is the origin of the biblical concept, "As it is in heaven, so shall it be on earth." Nonetheless, if the saying was true, both human and animal personality traits could be observed from the night sky by watching the planets with technology far more advanced than our own. The animal personalities that chemists chose to represent the planets were derived from the nature of the planets. The ancient chemical people used animals to communicate the characteristics of each planet to laymen and foreign people who could not understand such a high level of science. For instance, Cancer, the crab, which is a water sign, is ruled by the moon. And we all know that the gravitational pull of the moon causes the tide to rise and fall. This could not be communicated to simple people from the West. It had to be taught to Greeks and Romans, as well as Asians and Arabs, through a simple system of animal characters, sort of like a fairy tale being told to a child.
Anthropomorphic. Let me clarify that term. It just means to apply human characteristics to non-human objects. And so this anthropomorphism was used to explain the character traits of the planets. Like I used the example how the moon affects the tide. Everybody knows that. That's a basic principle. Okay, but it's higher principles that are being taught to us and that were being taught to laymen back then that had to be taught through these animal signs. It had to be taught through these like fairy tales. But it's just like the higher principles of morality in, say, like Goldilocks and the Three Little Bears. You know, they're using terms that people that were not gods could understand to explain to them the characteristics of the planets. Now what we need to understand real quick before we get into the next section, what we need to understand is there are people who understand all of those higher principles. And those people control the world. This is why we're doing this. Look at the dynamic of this thing. Our chemical ancestors was thinking on such a high level that regular people could not understand how they understood the planets. So they made up fairy tales to give us a guide. And if we treat them the way the characters are set up, we might learn something.
So you see, the chemical people understood the connection between the planets and the stars and our behavior on Earth. They left us with a guide to the chemical understanding of the universe in terms that we could understand. And that is the basic foundation for the use of the animal symbols.